What's going on, guys, and welcome back to another episode of the German Bear Podcast. And today we want to take a look at the 2025 Chicago Bears roster as it is right now, look at the coaching staff, and talk about if the Chicago Bears have an opportunity to take on the NFC North and finally be the champions. And today's more of a podcast type of style episode. It's not going to be that much film analysis or anything like that, but today we're purely going to talk about the Chicago Bears offseason so far, at what point they are at right now, how the coaching staff is looking like, and how competitive they can be with the roster that they've built. We'll talk about free agency, we'll talk about the draft, and put it all together and look at the roster as it is right now for the Bears in 2025. Yes, there's still some free agents out there, and there's going to be some roster changes. Obviously, we're pre-training camp right now, so there's a lot of things that are going to change, but the main starters, the main guys on the team will be set or are already set right now. Maybe there's one or two additions with veterans, we'll see, but let's see what the Chicago Bears roster offers. And I want to talk about one thing first of all, which is the coaching staff. Let's start off with Ben Johnson and what the Chicago Bears have brought in under Ryan Poles' administration and what they have right now to work with. And obviously the number one guy to talk about is Ben Johnson. He is the big headline in Chicago overall, Bears football overall. I think it's been a long time since we had a polarizing head coach like him. So having Ben Johnson in the building is obviously a big get for the Chicago Bears. Ben Johnson is one of the best offensive minds in football right now. I stand on that with everything I have. I can mention him with the likes of Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay, and just one of the most creative and effective coaches we have in the NFL right now, and also one of the most fun ones with obviously all the trick plays that he's done with Detroit and elevating that roster and make them the top offense in the NFL in 2024. So Ben Johnson, we don't need to spend too much time on him. Phenomenal get. He's going to get this together for the Bears offense, and I think we're going to have a 4,000-yard passer earlier rather than later, I think. So obviously Ben Johnson, a big get, but what gets me even more excited is his staff. Dennis Allen is going to be the defensive coordinator. Haven't really talked about him, but having a guy that has head coaching experience as a coordinator for you and even recent head coaching experience is a big get for Ben Johnson and the Bears overall. But as a defensive coordinator, Dennis Allen has been phenomenal for the New Orleans Saints, and under Sean Payton has been that DC for years and years and years, as he then finally got a head coaching job at that tenure with the Saints still. But as a defensive coordinator, that defense is going to be really, really good. So two things that really ease me into the 2025 season already is I trust Ben Johnson to get the offense going, and I trust Dennis Allen to get the defense going. I don't think there's ever been a unit that has been really bad under Dennis Allen. There's never been a unit that has been bad under Ben Johnson. And that's a big-time confidence boost. And speaking about a period of the game, a phase of the game that has always been good, we still have Richard Hightower as a special teams coordinator for the Chicago Bears as well. So that's another huge retainment for the Chicago Bears, having Richard Hightower back, who's been a phenomenal special teams coordinator and a guy that's been on the radar, I think, for a couple of teams now for some years, but he always stayed with the Bears, and I really appreciate that. And he's going to do great stuff with the special ops for the Chicago Bears moving forward. And then our offensive coordinators, Declan Doyle, who's been the tight ends coach for a very bad tight end room for the Broncos last year, so I honestly don't know too much about him, but I mean, he's probably just a guy that has experience with Ben Johnson. He knows him, he knows Ben. And at the end of the day, I think it's just about trust and helping Ben Johnson, putting that offense together, even though Ben is still calling the plays. So Declan Doyle, I guess, is just a comfort pick for Ben Johnson, which whatever helps Ben, helps me, makes me happy, and should make the Bears happy as well. But where it really gets interesting with the coaching staff at the Chicago Bears, I think, is when we look at the notable assistant coaches for the Chicago Bears. And there's a couple I haven't really dug into too much, but there's a couple I want to mention. First of all, Antoine Randall, wide receivers coach and assistant head coach for the Chicago Bears now moving forward. He has done an exceptional job coaching up the Detroit Lions receiving core with Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams, Tim Patrick last year, Khalif Raymond. He has really made sure that he has a productive room there in Detroit, and he's known for being a guy that's hard on his players knows what he needs to do and what needs to be done to be successful in the NFL, as he was a very successful NFL wide receiver as well. And I think from a leadership perspective, he's a perfect addition in the coaching staff to make sure that the Chicago Bears set a straight point from the start of early OTAs to training camp into the first season of this is how we run our system. That's the culture we want to build, and we want to be tough, we want to be physical, but we want to be fast too. I think Antoine Randall is a great addition in order to achieve that for the Chicago Bears, and I know with the receiving room that the Chicago Bears have, he's never had that much talent in a receiving room. So that gets me super excited. And he must be very excited too, because he got a great group of players to work with. Now, the second offensive assistant coach that I want to mention is Eric Bieniemy as the running backs coach, going back to his days with Adrian Peterson as a rookie with the Minnesota Vikings. He has been an exceptional running back coach overall through his coaching career so far, so he's known for coaching running backs. So for this young running back room with DeAndre Swift being the leader, and then you got Roschon Johnson, Kyle Monunga, and maybe potentially a free agent that's joining that room, I think we will get the most out of Kyle Monunga, which gets me really excited because I already done a video on Kyle Monunga. If you want to, feel free to check it out. But I think Kyle Monunga is an exceptional football player, and I'm excited what Eric Bieniemy is going to coach out of him. A very old school type of coach, but I love that the Bears have him. And then for Ben Johnson, again, a great add to the coaching staff as a offensive coordinator or former offensive coordinator for the Kansas City Chiefs, winning a couple of Super Bowls in that staff and just being under Andy Reid. Eric Bieniemy has been a hot name for a couple of years and then just dug down, but I think taking an offensive coordinator job for UCLA, and then last year I think he was with Washington, if I'm incorrect. But anyways, or it was the opposite way around, it doesn't matter. But I think overall having Eric Bieniemy with his experience as a former offensive coordinator and the great stuff he achieved at running back coach as well is a great get for the Chicago Bears and another big name in the coaching staff for Ben Johnson. And then the third one I want to mention with the offense is one of the more important coaching positions for the Chicago Bears, which is Dan Rochar, offensive line coach for the Chicago Bears moving forward. He has great experience already as an offensive line coach in the NFL. He was coaching the offensive line of the Saints from 2016 to 2020 and had guys under his wings of the likes of Max Unger, Jari Evans, Zach Strafe, Teron Armstead, Andrus Peat, and then also coached rookie Ryan Ramczyk. So he has helped develop young talent and also further develop some all-pro or Pro Bowl talent there as well. So for guys like Joe Thuney, that should be exciting, but also for young rookies coming in like Ozzie Trapilo. So Dan Rochar is someone that really gets me excited too. And then one big name to mention, obviously, for the defensive coaching staff is Al Harris, defensive backs coach and passing game coordinator. He's been the DB coach for the Dallas Cowboys, has been a Pro Bowl and All-Pro player in the NFL himself at defensive back, and he has helped the Dallas Cowboys to have a great pass defense over the last couple of years with the likes of Trayvon Diggs and Deron Bland in there for them in the backfield, and he has helped them to further develop and have very productive seasons. And I think Jalen Johnson is finally going to be the undisputed number one cornerback in the league, even though Pat Surtain gives him a run for his money. But with Al Harris, I can really see Jalen Johnson having a undisputed all-pro first team type of season this year. But also the rest of the cornerback room, rookies like Zach Frazier, they should really thrive off of that. And him as a DB coach, I think is really exciting for the Chicago Bears moving forward, and the defense and offense should be coached up really, really well with the big names that we have right now under the staff for Ben Johnson. So with that being said, that's been all about the coaching staff. That's a couple of guys I wanted to especially just mention right here in today's podcast episode. And now we want to move on to the roster and look at how good this roster is, from the starters to the backups, depth-wise, and how they compete with the NFC North. And we're obviously going to start off with the offense. And what does Ben Johnson have to offer and have for the Chicago Bears in 2025? What has he to work with? And this is obviously a big point with what the Chicago Bears have brought in. And we will start off with the most important thing, offensive line. brought in 3 guys through free agency and trade. Traded for Joe Thuney from the Kansas City Chiefs, brought in Drew Dahlman through free agency from the Falcons, and got Jonah Jackson via a trade, who's been exceptional for Ben Johnson during his tenure with the Lions from the LA Rams. And then you also drafted Ozzie Trapilo in the 2nd round of 2025 and Luke Newman in the 6th round of 2025 as your new additions to the offensive line room. And I have to say, I absolutely love the offensive line for right now, and it should be one of the strengths actually of the Chicago Bears, which sounds unfamiliar because we haven't been that strong in the trenches for a while now, offensively and defensively. But I really do believe that the offensive line room for the Chicago Bears looks really good. You got Braxton Jones, Joe Thuney, Drew Dahlman, Jonah Jackson, and Darnell Wright as your starting 5 from left to right. And then you have Ozzie Trapilo as a backup right now, but I think he can truly compete for the starting spot over Braxton Jones at this point in time. It's going to be a training camp battle, and whoever doesn't win it is going to be a great swing tackle for the Chicago Bears. You got Luke Newman, who we'll have to see how he does in the pros in training camp with the Chicago Bears, but still an intriguing player that we've gotten right there. You still have Ryan Bates as a backup, who I think is an exceptional swing guard that can also play center for the Chicago Bears, so just position very valuable player, and I think he'll look pretty good. It's just he can never stay healthy, but right now he's the backup. He doesn't need to start. He doesn't need to take hits. So if ever there's a situation he needs to jump in, I think he's a great player to have as a backup. And then you also have Karan Amagaji, who I think still needs some time to develop. The situation last year was not fair for him to just being thrown into the water like that, and I think Dan Roshar is excited to work with him, and let's see what we have with him either at tackle or guard. But I think he's still a project player that can develop, and we shouldn't completely write him off yet. So offensive line wise, I think the Bears look pretty good. Moving on, weapons for Caleb Williams. Wide receiver room, we got DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, Tyler Scott as the big names that were there already last year, and then we added Luther Burden III in the 2nd round in 2025, Olamide Zaccheaus as a free agent from Washington, and Devin Duvernay also from Jacksonville. And this is very, very exciting for me. Obviously, you lost Keenan Allen. You need to replace him. You got Luther Burden III, who is one of my favorite players in this year's draft class. I already made an in-depth video analyzing what he brings to the table for the Bears, so make sure to check that out too after this video. But Luther Burden is the slot guy, great addition, and he has a very bright future, not just in the slot in the NFL. And Antoine Randall L is going to thrive with him and is going to have a lot of fun coaching him up. But you still got DJ Moore, you got Rome Odunze as your outside guy as well, and then you added Olamide Zaccheaus as a 4th weapon for the wide receiver room too, who's very underrated for years now in the NFL. So you got 4 really good guys, and with Devin Duvernay, you have a solid backup piece that can also return punts like a demon. So that's very exciting too. Then we move on to the tight end room. You got Colson Loveland, Cole Kmet, Durham Smythe. 3 guys, love all of them. Cole Kmet and Colson Loveland are going to be a dynamic duo in 12 personnel for the Chicago Bears. Can't wait to see those 2 players play together, but especially Colson Loveland is a dog, and he's going to feast for the Chicago Bears and Ben Johnson's offense. I really, really believe that. And then for the running back room, you got DeAndre Swift, Roshan Johnson, and Kyle Monangai. Now, this is more of the biggest question mark I have for the offense. How's the run game going to look like? Obviously, you restored the interior of the offensive line, so you should be much better in the run game. And it's obviously a lot of a lot depends on the offensive line. Like Brett Coleman always says, the offensive line sets the foundation and the running back sets the ceiling. So we should have a really good foundation. We'll just find out what the ceiling is going to be, and if we still bring in a free agent guy or if we're going to roll with this rotation as of right now. I think DeAndre Swift behind a solid offensive line can do pretty well. We saw that with the Philadelphia Eagles. And then you got Kyle Monangai, who I think is going to steal some reps from him because I think he's a true 3-down back that can block like a demon too, and is a very powerful back that can get you hard-earned yards. The same thing that Roshan can do, but I think he's a better receiver. Overall, just a little bit different of a prospect. Roshan had a couple of years now to prove a couple of things. He did not. I think Kamunungai's time to shine is right now, and they're going to compete for who's going to be the first down back or not with the Bears. So for the offensive philosophy, for the offense overall, I think obviously quarterback, I missed it. Caleb Williams, Tyson Bagent, Case Keenum, good backups. Caleb Williams is a starter. We don't need to talk too much about him. But for the things that they added this offseason, what he has to work with, I think he has a great receiving room, a great tight end room, a solid running back room, and a much improved offensive line. The sky's the limit for the 2025 Bears, and it's just all about Caleb Williams now picking the brain from Ben Johnson and just executing what Ben Johnson wants to achieve in 2025, and I think he can definitely do that. It's just about how quickly he can pick up everything and how quickly that offense can get into a flow, because the schedule is not going to be easy. You're going to play the NFC North, which is going to be very, very tough. It's one of the toughest divisions in football right now, which sucks for the Bears, but it is what it is. So they need to pick up quickly, but he has all the tools to work with now in 2025 to succeed, and I love the job that the Chicago Bears have done. Could they still add a running back? Sure, but I think overall it is a very good offensive unit. Now, with that being said, we want to move on to the defensive side of the ball, and we want to start with the trenches once again. Like I said, with the Chicago Bears, the trenches on both sides especially have never been this good for a while now, and I am super excited because, again, like with the offensive line, they put in some assets into the defensive line this year as well. Now, for returning players on the end deep tackle 3 techniques, we have Montez Sweat, Gervon Dexter, Austin Booker, Andrew Billings, and you still have Chris Williams right here. I thought was pretty underrated, and then Daniel Hardy as a hard-playing, all-effort guy as well. But you added a couple of more pieces: Grady Jarrett, Daya Odeyingbo in free agency, great. Jamar Turner, second round of the 2025 draft, great. 3 guys that can really have an impact early on, or will have an impact early on for the Chicago Bears moving forward. So you strengthened your inside with now Grady Jarrett, Gervon Dexter, Andrew Billings, and Jamar Turner. It's going to be a piece that can move around multiple ways on the defensive line, not just 3 technique, but he's going to be a great interior rusher that can now learn from Grady Jarrett, as he is a more raw prospect still, but he has the opportunity to learn from a great veteran in front of him who's done this on a very high level for multiple years in the NFL now. And then for the outside, opposite of Montez Sweat, you added Daya Odeyingbo, who's one of the more promising young pass rushers in the NFL from Indy, and you still have Austin Booker on the defensive line rotation, who, in my opinion, is still a great young guy that you drafted last year in the 5th round, who's already been very productive for the Chicago Bears in 2024. Now, for the next thing that we want to look at, let's move on in the front 7 and look at the linebacker room. That was something that I was really worried about, and I wish the Chicago Bears addressed a little bit more during the offseason, because I felt like we really lacked some depth, and whenever TJ Edwards or Tremaine Edmonds would go down, we have a massive hole there at linebacker. Now, what did they invest in? They invested into Ruben Hippolyte, who's a extremely fast sideline-to-sideline linebacker from Maryland in the 4th round in the 2025 NFL Draft. And you still have Amen Akbambaniga, who I am not really a big fan from, honestly, but yeah, at least added some depth right there. Now, your starters are pretty good. I think Tremaine Edmonds really needs to take a step forward this year and play a little bit better. TJ Edwards is a phenomenal linebacker, has played exceptional for the Bears since he's arrived. But I think overall the linebacker room is solid. It just lacks a little bit of depth, and that gets me worried a little bit. But you can work around it with great defensive line play and a good defensive line rotation, and the Bears should definitely have that now with the additions they made this offseason. And then the last thing is the defensive back room. Starting off with the cornerbacks, you still have Tyreek Stevenson, you still have Jalen Johnson, you still have Kyler Gordon as your nickel, you have Josh Blackwell as a nickel backup, Terrell Smith as a outside corner backup, and then you drafted Zay Frazier in the 5th round out of UTSA, a very talented outside cornerback as well. So from the starters to the depth, I think the defensive backfield of the Chicago Bears is one of the most talented rooms of the entire team, and also one of the best rooms in the NFC North for any team overall. I would say from depth to starters, I think Jalen Johnson is an all-pro. Kyler Gordon is one of the most underrated players in the NFL overall. Terrell Smith is a super underrated outside corner, and he's great to have as a depth piece. Tyreek Stevenson is a player that's up and down, but I mean, when he's on his A game, he is a very good corner too. And then Zay Frazier is just a super talented guy that Al Harris can work with, and maybe he develops into that replacement too in the future if he can put everything together, his speed, length, and technique. And then for the safeties, you have Jaquan Brisker and Kevin Byard back as a duo. Now, one thing I'm still worried about with the entire backfield is the depth at safety. I love Jaquan Brisker, I love Kevin Byard, but both of them could very easily be injured, and with the time that Jaquan Brisker missed in 2024, I'm a little bit worried about the depth. Now you still have Jonathan Owens, who's pretty solid, and Elijah Hicks, who has been playing better than I expected him, but I would still love the Bears to add some type of safety backup that can step in if the Chicago Bears have issues with injuries in that department. But I think overall, like I said, the secondary for the Chicago Bears looks exceptional, and with the added pass rush and run defense that the Chicago Bears have now, with returning guys like Andrew Billings and bringing in Grady Jarrett, both should feast from one another and be a great unit for defensive coordinator Dennis Allen. So with that being said, for the Chicago Bears roster, big question about around today's video. Can they compete in the NFC North for the title? Can they be competitive with Green Bay, Detroit, and Minnesota? And my answer is yes, because everything is in place right now. This roster is competitive. This roster has good depth at crucial positions like the offensive line, defensive backfield, wide receivers. This team is deep and can rotate this year, which really gets me excited. Second thing is you have a head coach in place that knows what is important for quarterback development. Caleb Williams is one of the most talented quarterbacks in the NFL. He really is. And you have all the weapons around him and the protection in place now too. So the sky's the limit with the 2025 Chicago Bears, and they definitely can be competitive. Now, one thing has to be said, not just the Chicago Bears had a phenomenal offseason once again, also the rest of the NFC North. Now, there's question about the Detroit Lions with the offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator positions, but the roster is still as strong as ever with some great additions in the NFL draft. Green Bay Packers, obviously Jordan Love is the guy that sets the ceiling now for the Green Bay Packers. But overall, this team is very competitive. They also had a phenomenal draft and some good offseason additions. And then lastly, you have the Minnesota Vikings, who on paper, in my opinion, are going to be the biggest threat for the NFC North title as of right now, with their roster just looking phenomenal. I mean, they look pretty good, which scares me, but the Bears are going to find out really early into the season if they can keep up with that or not, with facing the Vikings in primetime Monday night, week 1 of the 2025 NFL season. So with everything being said, the Chicago Bears are going to be competitive in 2025. It's going to be improved from 2024 as of everything we've seen right now through rookie minicamp, what the press conferences have been with the draft philosophy, with the offseason strategy and free agency. I think they really put it together this year, and we're looking at a better future for the Chicago Bears. Now, they still need to do it on the field, which is always the thing with the Chicago Bears, right? We always hype up these teams, but this year feels different. It truly feels different because you have all-pro additions like Joe Thuney to the offensive line, and it just feels like they really got it together now. It's just for Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson to figure it all out on offense. But with that being said, guys, that's the end of today's episode. Definitely let me know in the comments down below what you think of the Chicago Bears in 2025 and if they can be competitive against the other NFC North teams. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe if you like today's video. And as always, guys, bear down.